What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Just letting you know with this little bit at the start that we now have a Patreon. Sub up to that and you can get all these episodes early and ad-free, so you won't even see this bit at the start. You get them a few days before the main episodes drop out. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got some studio episodes. We've got some Zoom episodes with some fantastic rappers talking about the films they love and the films that influenced them. We got a lot going on there. Plus, you get some bonus content like film reviews, all that kind of thing. I don't need to explain this to you. You know what a Patreon is. But yeah, it's patreon.com/Kinell Sinister Cinema. So check that out. Peace. Yes, people. What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Kinell Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In our own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I'm a big fan of this brand and I love the guys who make it. They've supported me for years, way before I was podcasting. They supported me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms on Don't Flop and other leagues. I love Forgotten Sons Apparel and I'm urging you all to check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Right, now on with the show. Yes, KSC podcast once again. I am Kinell, and this is Kinell's Sinister Cinema. Yeah, and we've got an ace returning guest today. I'm bringing back St0w. You might have caught his episode on Video Nasties a couple of weeks ago. He's an absolute geezer. I love hanging out with him. I love talking to him, and I definitely love chatting films with him. So I wanted to get him back as soon as possible. And guess what? That's right now. Now, normally, I'll generally, have a topic and get in mind for guests, or if it's someone who's, not really a topic kind of guy, we'll just have a general kind of thing. But this I think this might be the first one where a man like St0w, man like St0w, FKA St0w, suggested the topic, and he suggested Cyberpunk. Now, that's an interesting one. It's a very interesting topic because I wouldn't describe Cyberpunk as something that I am massively into, but when you look at the kind of films that are considered Cyberpunk, from your Blade Runners to your Robocops to your Johnny Mnemonics, all these kind of things, they're all films that I really like. And I clearly like this sort of subgenre of science fiction a lot more than, I don't know, whatever other kinds of science fiction subgenre there are. So that was quite an interesting suggestion. I hadn't really looked too deep into it at the point I booked it, so I'm rewatching a few things, and I've got a lot of love for this genre, a lot of love, and I think St0w's got a bit more of a detailed knowledge on the subject, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm recording this intro before we've filmed the episode, so I'm really looking forward to this one. I hope you enjoy it too. KSC podcast, safe. Yo, KSC once again. This will be going out in a couple of weeks. We're recording on All Saints Day, the day after Halloween. I have spent the day my first go on the strongest ADHD drugs that they supply to people in the UK, and they're rapidly wearing off and my brain is turning to mince. But got a fine podcast for you today, man. Very interesting subject. So I need to welcome back the man I just already bigged up in the studio, St0w.
Good evening. How's it going, man? You good?
Not so bad, man. Not so bad.
It's cool. My brain's a bit mince as well, so I'm sure between us we'll hold it together.
We'll figure it out. I might even be able to tie it into a couple of the films we'll be talking about today. Now, today's one, a bit of an interesting sort of subject. It's not a genre I'd have thought to have covered, but when I looked at what this genre covers, it's loads of stuff I like. So I don't know why I don't acknowledge it as one of my faves more often. But we're going to talk about Cyberpunk.
Yeah, man, for sure. One of my favorite, probably my favorite subgenre, maybe horror and Cyberpunk. Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very much an aesthetic thing, isn't it? Like, but there seems to be like a lot of themes that sort of combine sort of cyberpunk things. Like,
yeah, definitely some recurring themes you'll find explored in multiple films and stuff for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it's quite an interesting genre because most of like what cyberpunk's based on, from my limited dumbass understanding, is it sort of came from literature, really, from your Philip K. Dicks and your ballads and that, like, and it was when they got adapted that the sort of like cyberpunk aesthetic that we know today came about, innit?
Yeah, kind of, man. It was them and a few other writers. A guy called William Gibson, particularly. He was one of the. Yeah. He wrote a book called Neuromancer, which is sort of acknowledged as one of the first kind of cyberpunk books, and it's where the term cyberspace comes from. It actually comes from that book. So when we refer to the internet as cyberspace, like it actually comes from that book originally. And the idea of like cyberspace being like this virtual space you can go to kind of comes from that book, which is kind of how we think about the internet in a lot of ways. So yeah, and like you say, Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which was adapted into Blade Runner, is one of the kind of key cyberpunk books as well. So yeah, Philip K. Dick definitely in there. Yeah.
I mean, like Blade Runner, the adaptation, that's kind of like there was other adaptations that came before it, I think, but I think like sort of like what should we call it? Blade Runner is like sort of really, it's like a year zero for the aesthetic of cyberpunk, I would say.
For sure, man. Yeah. I mean, like you say, cyberpunk has a particular aesthetic, and a lot of it is captured in Blade Runner. So you've got the big kind of mega cities, like huge buildings for loads of people, very very kind of cramped, kind of hectic kind of atmosphere. Usually it's night and it's raining because like it looks cool. You've got like some flying cars and stuff like that. So aesthetically, Blade Runner brought in a lot of those elements for sure.
Yeah, and like the certain things that are aesthetic choices, like the use of neon is like quite a big thing.
Yeah, and, it's definitely a thing. Yeah.
And something I was talking about Marlo with when we were doing our little John Carpenter rundown. Like I think this is something that's carried over to the cyberpunk aesthetic. Is like how like that they predicted all these things like flying cars, video calling, and all this kind of thing. Yeah, and the thing they never really predicted was like a really clear screen or a wide shape, widescreen or a widescreen screen.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're all using like square CRT monitors and like that kind of stuff out there. There's no kind of giant screens and stuff. It's kind of true.
Yeah, it's flipping wild, like, because like, you know, if you look at like Blade Runner, which was the most amazing vision of the future, which I suppose is like a vision of now, and like there's like this podcast that we're recording now on this technology like looks cleaner than like what they imagined would be in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's one of the interesting things about cyberpunk. Really, is a lot of the stuff it predicted, like we kind of have now or has come true. So you go back and look at the stuff in the 90s, like it doesn't really look like it does now, but like, I mean, there's all kind of stuff. I was reading this article the other day, which is crazy. Like a while back, there's a company that made like cybernetic eyes, you know, like electronic eyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So a bunch of people got them, and then this company went bust. And now there's these people with these eyes that they can't get maintenance on them or whatever because the company's gone, and doctors don't know how to take them out because there were like special surgeons at this place that put them in, and now they can't get them taken out because this company's gone. And that's totally like a plot you get from like part of the cyberpunk game or something like that, is, you know, like bionic eyes and that sort of stuff. And there's companies now making like cybernetic arms and stuff, and they look exactly like the ones in like Deus Ex or Cyberpunk or something. So it's like a lot of it is kind of here now or very close. Like it's
and it's interesting to see what was predicted, because there was a lot that was sort of predicted by this genre, and like
Well,
I think about like Johnny Mnemonic's one. I come back to
oh,
a lot.
yeah. No, that's one of my favorite ones, man. It
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind
just
it's kind of goofy, but it nails a lot of the cyberpunk stuff. That's based on a book by William Gibson, who wrote Neuromancer as well. So
yeah.
it, any adaptations of his stuff have kind of got a lot of those elements in. Um, but yeah, Johnny Mnemonic's a good one, man, for sure.
Yeah,
They nail a lot of the aesthetic of it and the traveling through cyberspace stuff. It's kind of like the '90s thing. They get it exactly right there. It's yeah.
yeah. Like I just find it interesting, the whole idea of like storage, because the thing is, Johnny Mnemonic is like they're using customized brains for storage, like.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's the same thing in the Cyberpunk game as well. There are people who work as couriers to keep information. They basically have like a little, like an SD reader card thing in the side of their head, and they can like store chips with information and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah, it's cool.
that that I think certainly like from like the book Johnny Mnemonic, that was the first sort of appearance of that trope, and I just like anything with that trope in.
Yeah.
Strange Days.
I was just about to say, Strange Days is a similar idea, isn't it? He's got the memory that he's got stored, and yeah. Well, that's an idea you find a lot in cyberpunk. In cyberpunk fiction, you've got like the genre and the setting and stuff, but there's also like the character of a cyberpunk, which is like a punk kid who's like very good with computers, very technically like literate, and they can do hacking and programming and all this kind of stuff. And then people will hire them to do sort of like jobs for them, and that might be someone like they want some information couriered somewhere, so they store it in their head, or it might be like a corporation hires them to do some sort of espionage work or something like that. So the character of the cyberpunk is like this kind of punk kid who can do all this hacking stuff and be like a data courier and a programmer and all this different stuff. Yeah,
and that is something that did indeed come to pass. That was one of the predictions of the genre, was the whole thing that the most dangerous people in the world are not going to be they're not going to be the biggest soldier or the country with the biggest army. It could be a 14-year-old kid who's just got the know-how.
Yeah, knows how to do some stuff. Yeah. I mean, and like a lot of the cyberpunk stuff I guess it started late 80s, but went into the 90s, and a lot of hacking culture kind of started in the 90s, really. So that was kind of part of it. That's when you've got the start of hacking stuff and like crypto anarchists and like Anonymous comes from there eventually. But that was one of the themes of cyberpunk is the information is power kind of idea, and having this information that can get you leverage in different situations and that kind of thing.
Sort of the 90s was like the early era of like hacking, when you had things like phone phreaking and this kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And like again, like sort of like we're looking at like 70s book literature that became 80s movies that became like 90s reality.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there is. Yeah, I mean, you can trace it back to the 80s. I mean, the Cyberpunk like tabletop role playing game that like the game Cyberpunk 2077 is based on. That's I think that was in the mid to late 80s or something. And then you had like Ghost in the Shell and Akira.
I thought
those later maybe, but yeah, they were kind of late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, it's a lot of that stuff kind of percolating through.
Yeah, the anime sort of thing about it is like I think like it's sort of really important to bring up one of my favorite films that I watch like at least 2 or 3 times a year. 1995's Hackers.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And like what's interesting with Hackers?
I mean, that's mid 90s. That's right in the middle of all the hacking, cyberpunk, internet stuff. Yeah.
What's interesting with Hackers is that it was a cyberpunk film set in the era that it was made.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
it contained like a similar kind of like plot and devices and characters that would do such things as these cyberpunk films. But it was at the sort of birth of that becoming a reality.
yeah, and it has a lot of the cyberpunk kind of slang and the way the characters are. They're kind of quite
Yeah.
punk, kind of like their attitude and stuff, and it's very like high paced. And that was something that was in. I mean, again, this is like something that was just sort of coming in the 90s. So you had obviously the internet coming in, virtual reality, like even stuff like Windows, where you had like a graphic interface for computer programs was kind of a new thing. So you had like a visual
Yeah. Like
representation of
95 was the big
folders and
leap
stuff.
from 3.1. And like, yeah, you didn't need to be able to program any DOS.
Yeah, you didn't
To
have to do any DOS commands or any of that stuff. Yeah, it was all
Yeah,
just
so
based on
suddenly
pictures.
there was computers that everyone could use, and that's sort of the beginning of the tier when like a computer is something that's commonly used in offices and schools and businesses and government.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like, but like this, and the people that using them weren't computer scientists. That like that's
Yeah,
probably like that's the dividing point, because like now a computer is something that people use in work every day, but you've got this people with this who can code with this other level of knowledge.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. You've got like there's like a layer of people using the computers, then another layer of people who know actually and understand how they work
Yeah,
properly. You can do that deeper stuff with them. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so all that, it was a very kind of energetic time, technology and culture wise, and that kind of comes through in like, I guess the filmmaking to a certain extent, but like stuff like Hackers, where it's very fast paced and snappy and kind of, it's got some 90s kind of attitude, which is like a bit, I don't know.
yeah.
Kind of
It's a very
interjecting.
90s film, like, and
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
it's got like a dance music, electronic dance music, which
Mhm.
hadn't really like been a thing in American popular culture. Like, I mean, you know, the dance music like it originates from what you call it, America, but it wasn't a
Yeah,
mainstream thing.
yeah.
So like it was a big thing to have a underworld and the Prodigy and these kind of acts in the soundtrack to a film.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean that was another part of it that was coming through, was you had electronic music, which was electronic sounds with which fit with all this new technology and electronic ways people were communicating and thinking about things. So it's I mean it's all kind of part of the same vibe that was going on around that time. Like
And like sort of like I mean, synths have been used in what we call it on soundtracks like since the 70s. You know, you got things like Clockwork Orange and all this kind of thing. And like for a lot of the time when like synths were used in like soundtracks, it'd be like, I mean, latterly you had people like John Carpenter who just had synths in his own, so it's like, this is what I'm going to make the soundtrack with. But normally, if you commissioned someone who used synthesizers, it was like to create the sound of the future.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I mean, like going back to Blade Runner, the Vangelis soundtrack for that obviously massively influential. Like I mean, the whole of the synthwave music genre is kind of aesthetically taken from just like Blade Runner, Miami Vice, and Tron. If you combine those three things together, that's kind of synthwave. And there's a whole part of synthwave which is like this kind of neo noir, which is all just Blade Runner, basically just the Blade Runner mood, soundtrack vibe, just emulating more of that kind of thing. So it's an incredibly influential film and soundtrack and stuff. Actually, the guy that did the I put his name in my notes, but the guy that did the designs for the city for Blade Runner is the same guy that did the designs for all the inside the computer bits in Tron. Which I think was another really influential
Tron's important.
Yeah, because that's the first time you've got like the visual representation of inside a computer. And that became like that idea of kind of what cyberspace looked like went on into Cyberpunk and stuff in the 90s. So that guy that, you know, designed all the Blade Runner stuff and the Tron stuff, he was like no one kind of mentions him because he's like a film designer artist guy, I guess. He's not like a writer or whatever, but he was very important in the aesthetic and you know, setting the tone and the mood, and obviously, and like say that kind of visual representation of cyberspace that you then get in films like Johnny Mnemonic and stuff later on, like.
Which is still the representation that's in my head.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's still like how I imagine things working.
Yeah, yeah, and you've got like, but again, that kind of goes back to the thing with Windows. You've got like the visual representation of the inside of the computer. So in like when you see people hacking, it's like you have a tower that represents like data or whatever, and you're like flying around it or whatever. So yeah, I mean, all those ideas and that way of thinking about the internet hadn't been around at all before that point. That was all kind of new stuff that came in the 90s. So yeah.
And it kind of influenced like how things were designed, like I mean, like flipping, like from what should we call it? I think you could draw a straight line to what should we call it, from Tron to latterly Lawnmower Man, when like
definitely, man, yeah,
which came out around the time we had the first like sort of virtual reality helmets and that, like
and again that was coming in around the same time as all this other stuff. So it was like.
Yeah,
you've got the idea of cyberspace and virtual reality, and then you've got the idea that you can actually use virtual reality to go into cyberspace. And so, you see that like in a lot of films during the 90s. There's a lot of virtual reality going on and hacking and stuff for sure. Even in films that aren't really cyberpunk, it's just kind of
and you could follow it through right through to today with like Meta and the metaverse and all that.
Yeah. Well,
and like. The era of virtual real estate, which is it's not doing very well, and like the reason it's not doing very well is because no one actually wants it. It's just like the people who got the money to it, they just want to live in Tron, innit?
Yeah, kind of. Well,
Zuckerberg just wants to be like your man in the Tron thing, doesn't it? Like, and he's got the money to make it happen, but we ain't really done with reality out here yet.
Yeah, true, man. We need to sort that out first, I think, pretty much. But again, man, the term metaverse comes from a cyberpunk book called Snow by Neil Stephenson, which is like one of the early like cyberpunk books. And yeah, that's the metaverse. That's where it comes from. So they just nicked it from cyberpunk. And in Snow Crash, there's a thing called, I can't remember what it's called. I haven't read it for a while. I think it's called Project Earth, which is like it's literally just Google Earth. It's like it's a 3D representation of the Earth, and you can zoom in and look at different streets and stuff. But this was like, you know, in a book in the 80s, and then now it's like a real thing. That's
now like I think there's like somewhere a bit down the street for me where you can find my cat pissing around in the allotments.
Yeah, it's wild, man. So a lot of it seems like those Silicon Valley dudes just read all the cyberpunk books and like nicked ideas from them and stuff.
This is it. Like I mean, like you do wonder to what degree. Because like it was fiction that was the vision, like, so like if that fiction wasn't there, would we be in the same place? And I have to conclude no.
No, it's got to have mixed in and influenced it along the way. It's a weird thing. I think about that. I was looking at this like music software the other day, and the like the interface that you use to, you know, press buttons and change things and whatever, it looks exactly like Tron. It looks like one of the computers in Tron. And I was like, right, okay, well, did these people who made the software watch Tron and think, okay, we want our software to look like Tron? Or was just Tron so predictive that it's just like that's eventually how it was always going to look like Tron anyway, and Tron just predicted it? Like, just one of those.
I mean, is that conclusion? We just want a big button that lights up when you press it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I mean, like Native Instruments machine comes to mind. Like,
some of the interfaces are getting. They look like parts you'd see like in a computer in a sci-fi film or something for sure.
Yeah,
pretty interesting. Yeah.
I mean, like, I think like I like looking at cool bits of hardware and that, and I think it comes from the same part of me that you know, used to watch things like what should we call it? Like Blade Runner and that. I keep going back. Yeah. We keep going back to Blade Runner, but you can't like.
Well, that was something I was going to talk about. Is like what exactly makes a cyberpunk film? Because you've got these like you've got the setting and you've got the mood and the themes and you've got like hacking, virtual reality, all these different things. And there are films that have got those in. So like RoboCop has got like it's got the big corporations. It's got a guy being merged with a machine. So you've got this cybernetic thing.
Yeah.
It's got a theme which a lot of them have, which is like memories and what are memories and implanting artificial memories and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's got the kind of one of the key characteristics of cyberpunk people mention is high tech, low life. That's the idea. So it's there's lots of technology, but it's very low down, like street level, scruffy, Skid Row kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? High tech, like it's like the two things.
Yeah.
RoboCop has that in the way that like the environments are and stuff, and then you've got these corporations and the police who are very high tech and kind of.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Would you call it a cyberpunk film? I don't know.
I would, yeah. I think, like, because if we take the aesthetic out of it and we go back to the original literature, this was just all like what you'd imagine when you're out on the page, and I think like sort of like one of the themes of the genre to me is like first you imagine this future where the technology's there to do whatever you want. And then you look at, and then you acknowledge the fact that because humans still exist in it, that there will always be an underworld, there will always be crime, there will always be deviousness. So what does street crime, what does organized crime, what does corruption look like in
the future when we've got the technology and people have got robot arms and can punch through walls and shit? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got like it's got the dystopian thing. It's got the kind of there's usually a theme of like humans being oppressed in cyberpunk and kind of rising up against it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of the characteristics, I'd say. Yeah.
And one film that I would certainly lump in with that I'd lump in with this, even though there's very little cyberpunk technology in it, apart from maybe the suits and that, is a Scanner Darkly, which I believe is also a Philip K. Dick book originally.
Yeah,
and like, and the majority of that film is like that they've got the cool like flashy suit things, but really it's just about some drug addicts and
and they're just in like a normal house, just in a very low.
Cut in between that and the overcomplicated bureaucracy of like a police service that's not even a service. Like they're backstabbing each other and they don't even know what they're doing. That they're doing it.
Yeah, there's all kind of a tangled web of corruption going on.
Yeah, and there's just so much corruption. Like you don't even know if you're the right person anywhere, and like people who are in there's undercover officers in with all these drug addicts that don't know they're being turned into drug addicts. So it's an amazing film. Like it's an incredible film. Like I can't remember who directed it. Who directed A Scanner Darkly?
It's oh man, he's one of my favorite directors. I can't remember his name now. Richard Linklater.
Yeah, that's it. Richard Linklater. Like and like
they use that like rotoscoped animation thing that they came up with for Waking Life, and then they did that one afterwards, which is the same kind of that animated cell shaded kind of look to it, like
and like even though it's like mostly just set in a Southern Californian house, like that gives it that image to let you know that everything's like not quite right. And Alex Jones makes an appearance. I think he made an appearance in a few Richard Linklater films, hasn't he?
Yeah, him and Richard Linklater are both from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
So they're kind of mates, I think. Yeah, he's in Waking Life as well, basically playing himself, like shouting out the van for a megaphone about like the government and stuff like that.
Yeah,
in both of those. Yeah.
This was early Alex Jones when it was all fun then. Like, flipping. This is before the Parkland shooting. This was fucking like what should we call it? Something's fucking corrupt with 9/11 and all this stuff.
Well, that's another thing that's kind of like the conspiracy theory UFO stuff was all coming about in the 90s as well. So that kind of made its way into cyberpunk fiction, which is why you I guess you have this theme of like humans being oppressed and whatever, and you've got the big corporations and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that is often in cyberpunk stories. There's often like conspiracies, or there's people being mind controlled by like an AI or something, or like they've had their identity or their memories replaced, or that kind of thing. So yeah, that's
like and this was something that the CIA was trying to do with MK Ultra.
Yeah, I was literally just gonna say, and MK Ultra is a real thing. So that's
It's
not even. Yes, I mean.
So semi off topic. Have you read Chaos?
Charles Manson one.
Yeah.
No, I haven't actually. A couple of people have recommended that to me. Yeah.
That's a very good book. Where, it does have some pretty like compelling evidence in it that there might have been some kind of connection between MK Ultra and Charles Manson,
if Susan Wojcicki is listening, the CIA did nothing.
Yeah,
has nothing to do. Yeah,
in the book, he like at the end of it, he goes like, "I'm not going to draw a conclusion because I don't think there is enough evidence to prove it. So this book's just the evidence that I have available to me." But the CIA were operating like a doctor's clinic where members of the Manson family would go to get checked out for like STIs and all that. So if nothing else, it was like very likely that the acid that they were taking was supplied by the CIA. And ultimately, the whole thing about Charles Manson is that he never killed anyone himself. He went to jail for brainwashing his followers and making them do something. So like that is what MK Ultra was trying to do. So even if he wasn't connected to it, he did succeed to what they were actually doing. And,
I'm sure they were studying him to get some tips on how to persuade people and that kind of thing, at least. And persuasive, I guess,
Yeah, and the Manson murders, even if the CIA aren't involved, they achieved what they were trying to do, because it was a big thing about trying to demonize communists and hippies, and anti-establishment thinking, and this is when we get the demonization of weed, etc.
And
in the 60s, we've just come off the back of the Summer of Love, and more people are going to this hippie culture and thinking outside of the box and thinking war might be a bad thing, Vietnam might be a bad thing, we probably shouldn't be there, fucking shit up, and a lot of people are dying and there doesn't seem to be any benefits. A lot of people are thinking this, and the whole hippie thing just comes crashing down with the Manson murders.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you wanted a scary example of hippies gone wrong to point to and kind of lead people away from it, that's a pretty good example, isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying.
Yeah, and this is it. You have the 70s where things get fucking darker, and you've got and then eventually you have the 80s, which is the ultimate era of capitalism. We have Reaganism and Thatcherism. We have it becomes about Wall Street. It becomes so that's like a major generational shift between those two decades, and these would be the decades when the genesis of cyberpunk, the mistrust of the government and authority, that was pervasive in the remaining free thinkers of the 70s. This was certainly an influence. This was certainly an influence on the authors that were
no doubt, especially Philip K. Dick. You can tell there's a lot of that stuff in his writing, especially Scanner Darkly and stuff like that, where it's the government paranoia kind of stuff, obviously. Say Alex Jones was he sort of came about in the 90s, I guess, kind of started
it's
well known.
like around the time of the John Ronson book and flipping Storm in
Bohemian Grove.
Storm in, not Bilderberg. It wasn't Bilderberg, but he did expose that. It was what's it called?
Bohemian
Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, he went to with John Ronson. Yeah.
He was like shortwave radio guy in it, like Art Bell, Coast to Coast. Like he was like shortwave radio, like just ranting.
Yeah, he's just like a local guy around there. Yeah. So that's, I think, where you get in a lot of cyberpunk plot lines, you have government conspiracies, you have like agents working for corporations, and stuff like that going on. I think that's probably where that comes from.
Yeah. So the timeline is very interesting with cyberpunk, like in that respect. In the 70s, you have the mistrust to create the literature with these themes, and then in the 80s, like the Wall Street era, like and things like that. We're seeing like Trump Tower being erected and all this kind of shit. These giant buildings and flipping the first Apple adverts and things like that, and
if you were looking at a cyberpunk future city, I guess, I mean, they kind of started in the 80s. That's when the skyscrapers started and whatever, which I guess if you, stretch that forward, that's the early stages of whatever futuristic megacities we're going to have in the future or whatever.
Yeah. That's the timeline, isn't it? Suddenly all this literature that was created in the 70s, suddenly we have directors that can see what it would look like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I'd say I don't consider Alien a cyberpunk film, but I do consider like a lot of the design of Alien would be something that was very influential.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. It's got those like the old style of computers and the technology and stuff, like the green screen computers and stuff.
It's like set in the future, but it's like what flipping like miners would have to use.
Yeah. So it's very functional, like not fancy.
It's the flipping like because the people in it, they're like the working class end of an amazing future.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They're like, the grunts for the corporations. In another way, you've got this, like in Aliens, you've got the soldiers and stuff as well, but everyone's kind of working for the mega corporation in different ways.
But in Alien, it's like space, and that's Ridley Scott again. So when Ridley Scott comes to Earth, he's got a vision inspired by like what Tokyo was actually looking like, and.
Yeah, I mean, Japan is definitely like a massive influence on cyberpunk. Not only, I mean, you've got the Japanese cyberpunk, like Ghost in the Shell and stuff, but then, like in Blade Runner, the city is very Japanese influence, like there's all the noodle stands and stuff, and that's something you see in most cyberpunk. Really, is like Japanese influence, and you have like in the cyberpunk game and some of the stories and stuff, you have like corporations have like ninja assassins and bodyguards and stuff who are these like high-tech ninjas with like laser katanas and stuff. So there's this continuation of like Japanese culture, and like in Cyberpunk 2077, the big corporation is called the Osaka Corporation, and that's like run in a dynasty kind of way, the way the kind of Japanese family structure or whatever. So that's seems to be a big part.
In the same way the Yakuza would run and all, which is also to my understanding, like similarly disciplined and hierarchical, and like
I mean, it's all based on Japanese traditions, as weird as that may seem, if they're Yakuza or whatever, but it is all very heavily tradition based. Yeah, for sure.
I do think that's another one that's kind of like the Japanese influence is like that's another one that Blade Runner's kind of like year 04, because it was like Japanese science fiction, but it was space stuff and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was.
And like I think there's an implication in Blade Runner that whatever geopolitical movements have taken place, like Japan has continued rising because in the aftermath. Because like they were like one of the fastest growing industrial economies in the world, like rebuilding after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and like so there was that point where and like still, if you go to like Tokyo today or there's parts of it that look like the fucking future.
Yeah, no doubt.
And they hit that point decades before us, like.
Yeah, man. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, and I can remember like watching. I do remember BBC Two used to do they'd have like a horror night, and they'd show like a bunch of horror films and documentaries in between and shit like that.
Yeah.
They did a Japan night once, and I
Is this the one with what should we call it? Tetsuo 2, the body hammer?
Yeah, I think yeah. That's I mean those are Cyberpunk, I'd say, the Tetsuo films.
In
a different arty Japanese sort of way, like aesthetically different, but you've got man and machine combining very literally in the case of like Tetsuo and stuff. But so I remember seeing like footage of what Japan looked like, and I was like, it looked like the future, and they had all like technology that was ahead of us. They had like games consoles that weren't out over here, and all this kind of stuff. So literally, it's like the future, and that's probably around the first time I saw like anime and stuff as well, because in the early 90s, like the first wave of like
it was manga entertainment coming off the back of
the label.
Coming off the back of Akira, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like Akira, Ninja Scroll, Ghost in the Shell. Like they were the first kind of wave of ones that came over. Or at Suki Doji as well. I saw I saw way younger than I should have done. But like so, and that was all coming in the 90s as well, I guess, around the Cyberpunk time. So you've got like the Japanese anime, and then you've got like the American version of the Japanese style mixed in with the American stuff as well. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's very much a cultural fusion, like, because I don't think the importance of Akira can be stressed enough. Like, I mean, like even like even like Tetsuo the Iron Man, like the Tetsuo, the name came from Tetsuo in Akira.
Yeah.
And like I remember reading the comics at the time. It's just like volumes and volumes of this epic saga.
I can remember the first time I watched it, and I think I was probably like 10 or 11 or something. And obviously, I've never seen anything like that at all, because there isn't really much that's like Akira. And like, I mean, it completely like melted my brain the first time I watched it. Like I was kind of like amazed and scared, and like I just like didn't know what to make of it, man. It's just really like it's a lot.
It was like there was nothing like it just wasn't like conceivable to do anything like on that epic scale. And on that epic scale with so much detail. I've got the 4K of it, like, and the flipping like the level of detail in each animation.
It's mind blowing. Yeah. It's like it's god tier, like.
And like adult animation hadn't really like become a thing in what should we call it, like other markets. So like
I'd only ever seen obviously like kids animated stuff at that point. So I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Especially the whole end sequence, man. I can still remember watching that for the first time and just being like, what am I watching? I've never seen anything like this, literally, that looks like this, or this idea, or like what even is this? Like it's
And like Hollywood has been like chasing it, and like now they're kind of near, like, but and like now it's become a standard in some genres. Like, I mean, just the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and prior to that, you had the Transformers films. I'm thinking like, you just want to be Akira, don't you?
Yeah.
You just want to be like that one film from 1989. Like it's these certain things that are trigger points in it. Like
I mean, Akira and like Blade Runner is like massively influential, and is like generations of people have been influenced by that in all kinds of art and music and stuff. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, I did love that era of anime and all. Like, I've started going back to it a bit now. Like,
yeah. I've been watching like late 80s, early 90s stuff quite a lot recently.
yeah,
It's good, man. Like, it's really good. I can't get super into like modern anime and stuff. I don't know why. It's not just because like every series is like 800 episodes, and I can't.
yeah, that's something I've been struggling with. Like,
it's just like
I've been recently like trying to like sort of dip my toe into it. I've been watching this one called what should we call it, Devil Hunter, and all this kind of thing. But my favorite shit is that early like manga entertainment being the company and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was like Ghost in the Shell, like very much so.
Yeah.
And
Ghost in the Shell is like, I don't know. It's like almost like the perfect Japanese cyberpunk example. Like, if you're gonna get someone into cyberpunk, you've kind of got to give them like Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner, and be like, yeah, that's kind of that's where you want to start from, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd give him that, and I'd probably chuck him Akira as well.
Oh yeah,
I'd say like if you like this, there is a world out there for you. Like,
have you seen Serial Experiments Lane? That was one I was going to ask you about.
I haven't, but I've been recommended this by someone recently, and I can't remember who.
Oh, okay, man. Yeah. That's really good. It's a good cyberpunk kind of story, I guess. Although it's not super gritty, but it's about this. It's about a schoolgirl, and one of her group of friends at school dies, and then she gets like an email from her, like after she's dead, and she sort of says to her that she's in this realm called the Wire, which is like cyberspace, and like if you go into it, you can like become a god, and you can become part of this cult where people in the real world like worship you as a god, as like a cyberspace internet god kind of thing. And she sort of starts looking into it, and then like the real world. And
she ends up buying a load of NFTs.
yeah. So yeah, that's a really good one, man. I'd recommend to people. It's kind of quite bleak and kind of cold, and like it's got a weird atmosphere about it. But it's if you want stuff about traveling inside cyberspace and the real world and cyberspace kind of colliding and all those kind of ideas, that's a really cool one for sure.
There's a Japanese like a live action film that I think's like I think kind of important to this conversation. Do you know Pulse?
No, it rings a bell. It rings a bell. I don't know if I've seen it.
There's a short American remake, but that's one that's kind of like it's what should we call it, ghosts and like evil forces, like but within the machines, and maybe it is artificial intelligence and all that. And it's one of the few films that's really kind of like captured the communication at the time, like quite interestingly. Because like one thing I find with like a lot of modern films is that they're just not good at representing the what should we call it, the actual communication methods that we're using with talking on smartphones and that. There's no one's really nailed doing that in a visually interesting manner.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And like it's something that's like really affects storytelling nowadays. But we could, and they got it right in Hackers, though. They got it right in Hackers. Like the communication at the time, like that was spot on. Like day after I rented Hackers for the first time, I it was from the Blockbuster in Wrexham. Went back to return it the next day, and like then I went to like I think it might have been a Dixon's, and what should we call it? I bought my first pager.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah. I used to have a pager in the 90s as well.
Yeah, man. Never fucking answered anyone. Here you go, Mum. Here you go, Mum. Like, if you want to get hold of me while I'm out, flipping, you phone this number, dictate the message, and it'll appear on this magic box in my pocket, and I'll do nothing.
Yeah. I'll run to a phone box and call you back straight away.
Yeah. I could do theoretically, but I'm not going to.
But yeah, it's unlikely. Yeah, man. Yeah. Like you say, Hackers is it's very accurate to the 90s, I think, in some ways.
Yeah,
Actually,
it was so aspirational to me, man. Like I flipping. I was 15 when I saw it, man. Like that's it. Like I got that pager when we flipping saved up paper round money. Like flipping like that. Like, I didn't even have a computer till I was like flipping till I finished uni, which is mad because I was doing computer science. But like that's it. Like I wanted to like hang out in that bar where they turn up on roller skates and just play 16-bit arcade games on the biggest fucking screen imaginable. Fucking pixels the size of your actual head.
Good times, man. Still
man.
doing that now. Yeah, I watched a live stream of the guy that came up with the Cyberpunk role-playing game, games mastering a game of Cyberpunk, and one of the people playing was Matthew Lillard from Hackers.
Oh,
and he was playing his character from Hackers in this game of Cyberpunk. So
no way! That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, man,
is that up online anywhere?
Yeah, it's on YouTube, man. I'll chuck you a link after. It was pretty cool, man. But yeah, they did like a whole live stream like Cyberpunk game, and he was like playing his character from the film. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, I follow an account on Twitter called HackersBot that just tweets a GIF with the subtitles from like the movie Hackers,
Nice.
like every hour. So like I've always got that somewhere in my feed. So whatever's going on, if it's chaotic news, if it's something chaotic happening in rap, if it's like all these crazy things going on in the world, I'll be scrolling and fucking it's doom and it's gloom, but oh yeah, fucking there's the bit when he said that in Hackers. It just makes me feel a bit better. Like,
yeah, man, I'll follow a bunch of Twitter accounts like that just so I get some random memes or stuff in between all the chaos.
Yeah, it's HackersBot and like cat Twitter for me. Like, I just need that to just like keep my doom scrolling less doomy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure, man. It's easily done. You got to sprinkle a few cats in there to break it up, for sure.
Yeah, man, definitely. So,
what about The Matrix? Do you think that's a cyberpunk film? Because I've seen people sort of debating this.
I believe it is. Yes, I believe it is. Yes, I think it doesn't get enough credit. Not enough credit for The Matrix's aesthetic, which kind of became the new going forward into the 2000s when it was bullet time, and that became like that became when the special effects were part of your aesthetic. And like Matrix was kind of like the sort of like where that came from, but I think like Matrix takes a lot from Dark City.
Yeah, that's a great one, man. That's kind. I still feel like that's still kind of slept on, that film. It, like in general, it doesn't. Yeah. I don't feel like it gets enough play. It's really good, man. Yeah. Alex Proyas was stoked, man. Yeah.
The first Blade film came before The Matrix and all, like. So.
Oh yeah, would have done. Yeah.
That's not cyberpunk, but cyberpunk influenced. And I think Blade might be where This Is What We Wear is we wear the long leather coat and we have the sunglasses on.
I think so, man. Yeah, that look is kind of a cyberpunky look, and it's kind of It's
although what you call it, your man in Hackers, the bad hacker guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he kind of had a bit of that going on, but he wasn't really doing the sunglasses. It was the sunglasses and the trench coat.
That's the combination. Yeah, for sure. But that all, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think The Matrix kind of leads on from like 90s cyberpunk and other stuff like Minority Report as well. I would say like isn't a cyberpunk film. I'd say it's just a general sci-fi film, but it's got obviously it's Philip K. Dick, and also like it's got a lot of the surveillance, the corporations, the government conspiracy stuff. Yeah, but it's kind of like I don't know. Yeah,
it's on that what should we call it? Kind of like a Scanner Darkly end of the thing, where it's where it's about the themes and the world rather than an aesthetic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And like Minority Report's kind of like that's like that's something that you can draw as an evolution from like when from that Matrix thing of like you've got to have the highest tech special effects to make it look futuristic, even if you're just showing someone like avoiding a punch.
Yeah. I kind of like the way that it looked in the 80s and 90s when they're trying to make it look futuristic. Like, you know what I mean? Like the RoboCop 2 version of a futuristic city is kind of, I kind of rate that. And there was, I guess there was kind of a whole like little wave of B movies in the 90s that I guess you could say were influenced by Cyberpunk or the kind of themes. Like, do you ever see Hardware?
Richard Stanley,
Yeah, so that's not, I guess it's not exactly a cyberpunk film, but you've got like the gritty urban setting and the technology and stuff. I mean, it's more like a slasher film kind of, but with a robot.
Yeah. But this is the point. This is the point at which we're getting the films that are influenced by the the cyberpunk thing.
Yeah, because it's like military artificial intelligence robots kind of idea, which is like something you get in cyberpunk a lot. Is like you'll have like the military will have its own AI, and then different corporations will have their own AI, and sometimes they go to war and clash, or sometimes they like make a plan to join together into a more powerful AI to take over and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of one of the things. And like trying to think what else, man. Ghost in the Machine. You ever see that one?
I did.
It's like the soul of a serial killer inside a computer. That's kind of I feel like around the same time, like computers, networking, kind of stuff like in there. Yeah.
Like Terminator. Again, that's very much something that's a slash film, and it's something that's set in the present day. But it's just we sort of have that opening bit that like shows you a dystopian side. I hate the word dystopian, man, because so many people like misuse the shit out of it these days.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking terrible. Like Brexit's caused like the price of Brussels sprouts to go up by 20p a pound. It's so dystopian.
Dystopian. Yeah.
No, like flipping. If you are one of those people on Twitter, I understand your concerns, but I beg you use a different word.
Yeah, just like I don't know, things are looking a bit grim right now. We're not quite full dystopia like 1984, Brave New World, whatever. I think like it'd be alright. But like I mean that's what was I gonna say? Anyway.
Yeah, flipping. Before we wrap up, like we've covered a lot of ace films.
Yeah,
and like maybe we should come back and like deep dive into something at some point. But are there any other films that we haven't mentioned you'd like to chuck in the mix?
Yeah, I did. Let me have a look at my notes. I did make. What else? We talked about Strange Days. Strange Days and Johnny Mnemonic. I was going to say are kind of good examples. Like I don't know. To me, I don't know. It's difficult. I like cyberpunk films which are in the gritty, like city, like Blade Runner, Strange Days, Johnny Mnemonic kind of setting, and have all that stuff going on. So those ones I like. Especially there's one. It's kind of a weird one. There's one called New Rose Hotel. You ever seen that? It's got.
Oh no, I haven't.
It's pretty obscure one. It's got Willem Dafoe and Christopher Walken in it.
Yeah.
And it's based on a short story by William Gibson, who did Johnny Mnemonic and blah blah blah. And it's about a prostitute who gets hired by a corporation to like persuade this guy to do something. So it's kind of in the I don't know, espionage, double crossing, conspiracy kind of thing. I don't know. I kind of like it, but I think it was one of those films that was in like production hell or something, because it's like the editing's weird, and I think there was footage they didn't get to shoot, and then there's stock footage put in, so it seems like they kind of like got it together in the editing room last minute kind of thing, which kind of sucks because like it's got Willem Dafoe and Christopher Walken in it, who are both fucking amazing. So it's interesting if you're super into like cyberpunk and William Gibson, it's worth checking out and stuff. I wouldn't say it's a great film overall, but it's kind of, I don't know, there aren't that many adaptations of like William Gibson and stuff. So there's a lot more cyberpunk books and games and tabletop games and other stuff than there are films. like way more like. So it's That's the thing. Some of these films, like you'd say, Johnny Mnemonic isn't like an amazing film. You're not going to go, "Oh, it's a groundbreaking, life-changing film." But I just really like
fun.
it. Yeah, and because there aren't many adaptations of Cyberpunk that are that particular thing, and they nail it that much. Like I really like it, even though it's like, it's not Citizen Kane or whatever. Yeah. And then that's obviously why Keanu Reeves is in. Obviously, he was in the Matrix and stuff in between, but in the Cyberpunk game as well.
Yeah,
it's kind of from there, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like he's kind of become a part of the genre, like.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Yeah. He's become like a figure in it. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, a series I watched that's kind of cool. Do you know there's a Total Recall TV series?
I didn't know about the TV series. No.
Yeah, so it was made in Canada in, I think, maybe the early 2000s. It's called Total Recall 2070, and it's a series, and it's kind of like a detective series but set in the future, and every episode is a different case, but they're all cases to do with, like, I don't know, like virtual reality porn stars, or like there's like, all this technology figures into the story in some way, like, so, like that kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It got cancelled after one series. They only made one series, but it's I mean, I only found out about it a couple months ago. That's pretty cool. It's got a lot of interesting ideas and stories and stuff. Because that's one of my favorite things about Cyberpunk is like the ideas that are in it, and the level of detail it goes into, and like all the different technology and how it works, and that kind of stuff. Especially with like the Cyberpunk tabletop game, where you have like, it's like Dungeons and Dragons, where you have the big books with all the lore, and it tells you how everything in the city works, how the healthcare system in the city works, how the corporations work, how the different countries work, like what's the political history of everything, so that when you're doing a game, you've got like every single detail of how everything works. And that's one of the things I think is really cool about Cyberpunk, is like you have these stories, but they'll be based around like
because a lot of them
kind of like Black Mirror is in a way, I guess. It's like one story based around a piece of technology and how that works, but it's kind of different.
Like there are a lot of them. They're noirs, they're detective stories, they're suspense, intrigue stories. It's always that story, and like it's a story that could happen. Like you could set it somewhere normal, but it's not. It's set in this world with different restrictions and limitations and different possibilities. And like I suppose that's like the underlying thing of it. That like there'll always be an underbelly, because no matter how, because humans will always be bastards no matter where you put them.
Yeah, pretty much. There's always going to be the corpos. There's always going to be the rich people and stuff, and the underclass and whatever. And it's not to be too black-pilled or whatever. It's probably going to get worse the more these cybernetic abilities and implants and things come in. You're going to have a class divide between the people that have got the Neuralink and can upload and learn things quickly just by slotting an SD card inside of the head, and then the people that don't. And you're going to have this like ability gap, or whatever you would want to call it. It's going to happen. And that's something that's in, like, I don't know, like the Deus Ex games, for example. They deal with that, like the class divide between like people who've got augmentations and people that haven't and stuff. And it's So it's interesting to think about, but also it's kind of relevant and will probably come true as well, which is what's cool about it, really, in a way.
Yeah, things like I always think like the game that predicted like the future, like particularly like around I think Metal Gear Solid 2 predicted like so much with like the supply of information, because I kept thinking about it like a lot during COVID, because during COVID, like people I know that had never really like been exposed to like conspiracy theories suddenly had all the time in the world to get into them, and just started believing it all. And like they just found out about Epstein like a few months before, and they're like, so if this is possible, what if this is possible? And like there were people believing all sorts of nonsense, and like I think it's like because in like Metal Gear Solid 2, it was like it wasn't so much the censorship that was the problem. Like, although the censorship played a part, it was the deluge of information where, like, if you come in from an impartial standpoint, you can't tell what's true because there's so many sources and they all contradict each other.
Yeah,
but
sure. Yeah.
if you're going in with any kind of bias, you will find something that backs up what you think. So, because there's so many contradicted stories, you could always... And like, because
you can
algorithms...
find an opinion or a study or something that backs up whatever you think. Yeah.
And because algorithms push things similar to you, like to keep you on whatever website, be it YouTube or be it Facebook or anything like this. So if you start like going down that route, you'll just come across more and more information. And that's why you had people just convinced they're 100% right on every topic. And like everyone else is a fucking idiot, like, but the idiots like have gone down the other route. And like their preconceived notion, which was slightly different, led them to a different study, which affected their algorithm and kept piling them on. And like everyone, and like everyone thinks they're an expert because they've got done 10,000 hours of reading, but really they just read the same thing 10,000 times.
Yeah, they've only read within a very narrow like window of information or whatever. Yeah. That was a wild thing, man. Because I wouldn't say into conspiracy theories, but you know, I find them interesting. I like to read about them, and like when new ones come up, I like to look into them and see what the deal is and stuff like that. And obviously you'll find stuff in there like MK Ultra that is true. There's always little nuggets in there that did actually happen, which is interesting. It's just the way that they're linked together into one chain is usually like dubious and whatever.
You've got to be pretty committed with conspiracy reading, because the further you go into it, the better a bullshit filter you need.
Because sure. Well, that's what I was going to say, man. Is I've got kind of like I've been looking at stuff like that for a long time. I can kind of tell when it's bullshit and stuff. But if you're like you were saying, if you're just like a regular person who doesn't read all the weird shit I read and whatever, and then they come across that stuff just you know cold from out of nowhere.
You find out the Epstein exists, and then a virus immediately shuts down the entire earth, and you've just got your internet connection and an algorithm, and you're trying to figure it out from yourself. Like fucking, I know people that went fully like, they went to. Like the whole fucking QAnon thing, like that's an example of why you need the fucking like the bullshit filter with this information technology.
That's
because
not even a convincing conspiracy theory to me, though. Like out of all of them, it's like really that's the one you went for. Some guy, it's probably a guy on 4chan, literally just trolling the entire world and just making shit up.
Yeah,
it's just like wow, okay. So
this is it. Like there was like an island of elite paedophiles. That is a thing that happened, but it wasn't every public figure that supported the Democrats and no one else.
Yeah. I don't think it breaks down down political lines. It breaks down on like if you're a paedophile or not.
Lines of it's
I don't think
it's about power.
Yeah. It's about I don't know. Bored rich people having done everything else, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. That's it, like fucking like Christ, when you can afford every computer game and you've got the time to play them all, you're gonna have to find something to do sooner or later.
That's it, man. Yeah. I guess it gets It gets
we've gone from Cyberpunk to the actual dystopian present. It's so fucking dystopian. But don't worry, you'll get all your answers on a fucking like 300 subscription on YouTube. Fucking
of course, There'll be a documentary which will explain it for you.
Yeah. People are on the and this is where you come to truth.
By the way, that totally didn't happen. Like it was.
This is where you get the real truth on movie podcasts.
Exactly.
With rappers on.
Yeah, you come to rappers if you on the.
That's it. Yeah, I think we're going to shut this one down there. Fucking,
cool.
we're over the hour mark. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah,
It's just reminded me of loads of shit I need to rewatch. Like, and like fucking, I think maybe like fucking like we could even do a like. I'm going to need a lot of rewatching time, but like maybe we do a part 2 on this, like because.
We could go
because like while we were talking, there was just so many
before.
things I was remembering that I haven't seen in ages, like the anime I was watching when it was on videotapes. I was thinking of series like AD Police and
AD Police, man. Yeah. That's
and Angel Cop. Angel Cop's an interesting one because I watched that one over COVID because like I'd literally gone through like every fucking like film I wanted to watch in the UK, like, so I fucking like had to get a VPN and an Android box so I could watch fucking like Tubi in America. Tubi's an incredible streaming platform. If you got a VPN,
I haven't really used that one much, man.
It's an American one, and it's what do we call it? It's got ads, but it's free. So if you got a VPN, then it's gratis. But like they've got some of the wildest stuff on there. It's the deepest deep cut selection of. Like by a long margin. I was watching Angel Cop on it. I was looking into it, and it turns out like the English language version is like what should we call it? Like really heavily set. The one we got from Manga Entertainment was heavily like censored in certain parts. Yeah. But like not for the normal flipping tentacle reasons. Like it was just it was like the plot is like it's conspiracy based. But they're very, very explicit in saying it is a Jewish conspiracy in this. Like the Angel Cop version sort of edited it, so they're not fucking like they're just saying it's just like a rogue nation kind of thing, like in the British one, because it was just
Kanye would be into that one, maybe.
Yeah, like flipping like it's quite interesting because I think like the guy who like wrote it in Japan. Like, you know, it's like he was just reading about foreign conspiracies and they were just conspiracies. It was just like a bit of an influence for him.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
you know, there was because there's not really people in Japan going around thinking that fucking Jewish cabals are going to affect their life like there is in Western countries. And I'm not going. Yeah. It's one of those flipping like you need a whole separate conspiracy podcast for those things. But
that's a whole podcast on its own.
Yeah. But big up all me Jewish mates. You're all ace.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, you can't discuss conspiracies without it getting a bit too dark. And this is the part where my ADHD medication is worn off and my brain is officially turned to mince. We'll finish it there.
We'll do an Epstein episode or something some other time.
Oh, hell yeah.
You kind of already did that with the scary of 61st, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could just bring Dean back and fucking we'll just have a vibe. And
yeah, just.
I don't know. Maybe if you end up in Chester sometime, if I can get him down here, we'll just fucking chill in the studio and just have a vibes in episode.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm sure we'll end up. Talking about Epstein anyway.
Some rabbit holes. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Okay, safe. So, but yeah, we'll leave it there. Anything you want people to get eyes on? Do you want to drop your plugs?
Okay. Yeah. Well, speaking of Cyberpunk, I put out a rap album early this year, which has a lot of Cyberpunk themes and references and analogies in it, and I guess music wise it's kind of synthwave, vaporwave kind of sound to the beats and stuff, and I reference a lot of cyberpunk stuff, and I'm kind of using those kind of metaphors to talk about technology and society and blah blah blah. So I don't know, yeah, there you go. Kind of fits really well with the episode. If you like cyberpunk and also rap, check out my kind of cyberpunk rap album. It's called Artificial Skeleton. You can find it about places.
That's flipping like, I'm guessing anyone who's watched this far definitely loves both cyberpunk and rap. Sounds got you.
Yeah.
On that note,
yeah.
On that note, thanks for liking and subscribing. I'm Kinell. This has been Sinister Cinema. Safe.